Welcome everyone. Let's begin our lesson for today by going over the learning goals and success criteria. First, what are we learning? We're learning how to factor a number out of a polynomial in order to simplify the expression. How are we learning it? Through the factoring using a common factor notes and factoring using a common factor assignment. When can we use this information? To examine problems in your life from different perspectives in order to find the best approach to simplify the problem. How do you know you learned it? By getting a score of 4 on the factoring using a common factor assignment. Now let's take a look at our agenda for today. We will begin by going over our learning goals and success criteria. While we do that, you'll fill out your Get It Started. Once you've completed your Get It Started, we'll go over it together and answer any questions that you may have. Next, we'll do our weekly raffle. After that, we'll go over the factoring using a common factor notes, and then I'll give you time to complete the factoring using a common factor assignment. Once you've completed the assignment, we'll go back over it together and answer any questions that you may have. At the end of class, we'll go back over our learning goals and success criteria while you fill out your before you go. Your only homework for tonight is to continue working on the quadratics study guide and any incomplete assignments that you may have. Let's take a look now at the factoring using a common factor notes. The notes begin with the learning goals and success criteria. Understanding multiple forms of multiplication. So when we are multiplying two numbers together, particularly when one of them is a variable, we write them as joined together. So we write them like this. So we're multiplying 4 times x. So we write them joined together. We can also use parentheses to do this. So we can write 4 and then parentheses x. They mean exactly the same thing. They're just giving indication of multiplication. So distributive property. So it says, what would happen if we wanted to multiply 4 times 2 less than some unknown number? So instead of just being 4 times x, we want it to be 4 times some grouping of a number. So in this case, x minus 2. So we write it just like this, 4 times x minus 2. The distributive property states that we will multiply 4, so the number outside, by everything that's inside the parentheses. So this becomes 4 times x and 4 times negative 2. And then we can just go ahead and combine whatever terms we can combine at the end. So in this case, we get 4x minus 8. Because 4 times x is 4x, and 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. So then, how do we solve something like this? X plus 4 times x minus 2. Well, maybe you heard of this term before, FOIL, which means first, outside, inside, last. So you multiply the firsts, and then the outsides, so this one and this one, then the insides, then the last ones. Well, that might be what you've heard in the past, or maybe you haven't, but does it work for all polynomials? So can I do it with this? Now FOIL doesn't really help. So the easiest rule is multiply every term in the first one by every term in the second one. Pretty simple. So we take x and multiply it by x. We take x and multiply it by negative 2. Then that's all it for the x's. Now we do the 4. So 4 times x and then 4 times negative 2. And now we go ahead and combine these. So x times x is x squared. Negative 2 times x is negative 2x. 4 times x is 4x. And 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. Now we just combine the like terms. X squared, we have to leave that by itself, but we do have a negative 2x and a positive 4x, so we can combine those. So negative 2x plus 4x is positive 2x. So we get x squared plus 2x minus 8. So what about trinomials? So what if it's 3 terms? It's no different. We do the same thing. So we take x squared and multiply it by x squared. We take x squared and multiply it by 4x. We take x squared and multiply it by negative 6. Then we do it for the second term. Negative 3x times x squared. Negative 3x times 4x. Negative 3x times negative 6. And then we do it with the 2. 2 times x squared. 2 times 4x. 2 times negative 6. And this looks like a lot of stuff, but once we combine like terms, it shouldn't be so bad. So we get x squared times x squared is x to the 4th. We get x squared times 4x is 4x cubed. X squared times negative 6 is negative 6x squared, and so on. And we end up with this. Now we just combine like terms. So we're going to find all the x to the fourths. Well, this is the only x to the fourth. Then we find all the x cubes. Here's an x cubed, here's an x cubed. So we have 4x cubed minus 3x cubed. When we combine those, we just get a single x cubed. Then we do all the x squareds. Then we do all the x's. Then we do all the constants. And when we combine them, we end up with x to the fourth plus x cubed minus 16x squared plus 26x minus 12. Now factoring. Factoring is a term that means simplifying a problem by determining the factors of the expression. So we need to be able to pick out a common factor that exists within a number or a set of numbers. So in this case, let's just look at 36. What are the factors of 36? Well, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 9, 12, 18, and 36. These are factors because I can multiply all of these numbers by something and get 36. Or another way to look at it is 36 is divisible evenly by all of these numbers. So these are factors. So factoring is really just a reversal of the distributive property. For instance, with the distributive property, we had something that looked like this earlier. So we had 2 times x minus 4. Well, we multiply 2 times x and 2 times negative 4, and we get 2x minus 8. Now, if we were to factor this, we're looking for something that's in common between the two of them. Well, we know that 2x is divisible by 2 and negative 8 is divisible by 2. So I can pull that out, and I end up with 2 times x minus 4. So really it's the same thing. So I just divided each of them by 2 and put that outside. So factoring in this way is exactly the opposite of the distributive property. So let's look at some examples. So we have x squared minus 4x. So we're looking for something that's in common, that we can divide out of both of them. Well, we have an x in both of them, so we could divide that out. So when we do that, we have x times something is equal to x squared minus 4x. Well, we know that we need to pull out an x, so we're going to divide x squared by x. So x squared divided by x is just x. And then negative 4x divided by x is just negative 4. So we get x times x minus 4. Let's look at another example. We have x squared y minus 4xy squared. So we need to figure out what's in common. Well, we have a single x in common here, right? Because this x squared, there's not a squared here, so we can only pull one x out. And we have a y and a y squared, so we can pull one of those out as well. So we're going to pull out an x and a y. So we know that's what it's going to look like. xy times something is equal to this whole thing. Well, when we divide by an x, we're left with one x here. When we divide by a y, it takes the y away, so it's just 1. So all we're left with here is just an x. And then we have this minus 4, that stays. When we divide by x, the x goes away. And when we divide by y, we get just a single y. So we should end up with xy times x minus 4y. Let's look at another example. We have x squared minus 4. So we're looking for something that's in common. Well, all we have is an x here, and all we have is a constant here. So there's nothing in common there. So there's nothing we can factor out. So it's not factorable. So we just leave it as it is. So this is its most factored form for now. Now here's a video that shows you how you can check your factoring using Symbolab. So you can go ahead and watch that video. Let's talk now about how we can use the Symbolab factor calculator to factor polynomials. So if you notice, I am on Symbolab, and it does say that this is the factor calculator. So when you do that, the word factor should already be here. And now I'm just going to put in the equation that I want to factor. So let's say it's x squared minus 4. So that's what I'm going to put in, and I'm going to go ahead and click go. So when I do that, it gives me the answer down here at the bottom. X plus 2 times x minus 2. And it shows me the steps of how I can get there. So this is one way to check your work to see if you did your work correctly when factoring. So this is how Symbolab factor calculator can help you with your factoring. Let's take a look now at the factoring using a common factor assignment. The assignment begins with the learning goals and success criteria. If you scroll down, we can see the questions. The first one says, what is the greatest common factor of the expression? Well, we can see that 2x minus 4, there's a 2 in common. So the greatest factor is 2. So we go ahead and mark that. And it's going to continue to ask about the greatest common factor. Now let's look at this one here. So now we're actually factoring the expression. So it says 2xy squared z minus x cubed y squared z to the fourth. Well, the 2, we can't factor anything there because they don't have anything in common. We have an x in common here. We have a y squared in common here. And we have just a single z in common here. So we should have x y squared z as what we're factoring. So this has an x y squared z. And then what we're left with is 2. The x is gone, the y squared is gone, the z is gone. So it's just 2. And then we factor out an x, so we're left with x squared. The y squareds are gone, and we're left with z cubed. So that's this one here. So we'll go ahead and mark that as our answer. And we'll continue to answer all of these until we get to the end. When we get to the end, go ahead and click next. This will take you to your before you go. Go ahead and fill out your before you go and then submit your work on Google Classroom.